Should click through. Okay, and we'll get started. So first of all, my name is Peter Brook. I'm the operations manager for British Orienteering, and I'm also the lead safeguarding officer. So anything to do with safeguarding, any questions that come through, whether it's to other members of staff within the team, they should all be sent to myself, and I will pick things up. If you joined us early on, sort of in the summer last year, we had a live session. That was an introduction to where we were. I'll be giving a bit of an update later on, and just talk about the different processes that we undertake within orienteering. This will be a bit different this evening, but all become clear shortly. We'll be trying to send out a Q&A sheet if there are any questions that pop up through the session. So I'll be making a note and writing those down as we go along, and if any come up, and then we'll put them onto the website afterwards. The PowerPoint and the video link, as long as I've done it right, will all be appearing on the conference webpage as well later on, towards the end of the week. But if you do have any questions with regard to the development conference at all, send them through to Rick. He's done a great job of pulling all the sessions together and coordinating everything over the last few weeks. And the feedback that we've been getting has been really positive. So I appreciate everybody's time that they've put into presenting, and likewise for everybody that's been watching them as well. So tonight's session, I'm just going to give another update and reminder about the different training that's available out there, specifically with regard to safeguarding. Some general updates, again, just a bit more of a reminder as well about where things are heading and what we've got on, and then we'll get into the good stuff about the practical examples and different some group discussions to pull out a lot of different practical examples, and they're a combination of the NSPCC examples that they use, and we've tailored them to orienteering. And then there'll be some time at the end if anybody wants to ask any questions. I will try my best throughout the evening to answer them. If I can't answer them, I will do my best to get back, and I say we will put the Q&A answer sheet up towards the end of the week, and when we get everything sorted through there. So just to highlight some of the training that's available at the moment, you may be familiar with it. We've got the British Orienteering e-learning program. So the link that's on there, there's several e-learning courses that have gone down, been really well received over the last, well, certainly over the last sort of 12 months. And involved in that is the Introducing to Safeguarding. And we've just had over the last month or so, actually, we've had a really good uptake. It's been really steady as we've been going through since its launch, and then January, I've had quite a few that have taken it. It's really pleasing to see. Good way to start the year. It is only, well, usually it's £10, but it's going to be £8 till the end of February. So if anybody wants to get on there, it's a really good session. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to complete. It is going to be £8 till the end of February, then it'll be going back up to 10. And that in relation to the other courses that we've got on there, which are geared towards teachers as well. There is a mapping one that's in development as well, but the teacher ones are £30. The ones that are tailored towards clubs are vastly reduced. Also on the e-learning course on our webpage, there is Keeping Your Child Safe in Sport. That's a free CPSU. For those unfamiliar with that, that's Child Protection in Sport Unit. That's a branch of the NSPCC. They've put together a free online e-learning course as well. So we have put the link to that on our website. So if you want to get in there direct, you can join straight into that. A really good course there. Also part of the valuable part of club welfare officer training. We have the time to listen. Again, that's not run by us, but the CPSU. So put the links are on there. And what came in, which links into the next slide, actually, about sort of the coaching last year, beginning of June, requirement for all coaches to part of the coaching license was to have a tutor-led safeguarding and protecting children course if you coach juniors. So that came in as part of the requirement at the beginning of June. But there are people, coaches and other people, some people that haven't quite caught up, been able to take it yet. But then courses are all available through UK Coaching. We have lots of, excuse me if you hear the doorbell, UK Coaching, they're still keeping their online classrooms going. There's a lot of courses that take place in person as well, but they're still hosting online, which obviously makes accessibility nice and easy. So just I'll jump while I'm talking about the coaching license. It is a requirement. However, if you don't, you have to have a safeguarding qualification on your coaching license. But if you don't coach juniors, you don't have to do the tutor-led course. You can do our e-learning course will satisfy that because you can just coach adults. If you coach juniors, you have to have the tutor-led course to start with. Just updates again on DBS. Still getting plenty of DBS requirements coming through. Ideally, it should be for all coaches. There are circumstances where a coach wouldn't need one, but they are quite rare. So generally, as a rule of thumb, all coaches will need one, and anyone working closely with children, including especially overnight stays. There's a couple of the DBSs. If you do need, if anybody within your club or yourself need one, do get in touch with myself. I'll be able to. You just need to fill in a quick form. That gives you the information to know what type of DBS to apply for, whether it's a with, generally it's with or without a child barred list check. And I'll set you up. It's a really quick process, and we can still do the verification online as well, so it makes that process a lot easier as well. And then the final update on there, the club welfare officers, is certainly a requirement that came in at the beginning of this year as well. So every club should have a club welfare officer. And when we work through there, this session and newsletters and other training throughout the year that we'll be putting on to help support club welfare officers in that position as well. I have just had Fiona's just made Fiona up in Scotland has just mentioned about up in Scotland, so I just need to clarify something on there. For coaches in Scotland, whether it's adults or juniors, you do need to have a tutor-led course. So if you do need that, you can contact Fiona at Scottish Orienteering, and she'll be able to link you through there. There are information on our on the British Orienteering website as well, so we can link you through there. Same with the DBS, the BBG, and the Access NI. Depending on where you are, the website has the different links to which one you need, whether you are, say, England, Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland on that one. Thank you, Fiona, for helping me on that one. Okay, so what we're going to be moving into now. Now, for this session, we're going to build up, and we're going to be having several discussions. So all about different practical examples within clubs, and talking about sort of club experiences based around the examples that we've got here. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to split everybody into three different groups. I think it should work. Let me just have a look at numbers at the moment. Let's see whether it's three. I'm going to split it into 4 groups just to make them a little bit smaller. I'm going to have about 9-10 minutes. I'm going to put an example up of a scenario. Just want everybody within the group, again, just a chance to have a chat through, see what you think, and identify the different areas, which I'll have some points. I'll bring that up in a moment. And as I mentioned at the beginning, these are based on orienteering and some practical examples from the NSPCC. So we've just tailored them to orienteering. I'll move to the next one. So, example one that we'll put up. This is noticing a concern. So, read out the scenario. We've got two volunteers at club. Notice a father shouting at his 8-year-old daughter when it comes to collecting her from an event. The volunteers have heard other parents worrying about the child, saying the father is often quite nasty. They're concerned that this may be emotional abuse, but don't want to report it in case they've misunderstood. They wonder if they should wait and see if the girl says anything to them about their father's behaviour. So when I split into groups, just want you to have a discussion about exactly what the concern is. How would you react if it was you? Recording, how would you record the information if there's a concern there? And what are the potential dangers if no action is taken? And what sort of steps can the club do? So there's a few different questions there, but we'll just it's how you discuss through there. I mentioned that now these examples are, as I say, based on from NASPCC, but they're not anything specific or a particular example of a case that we've had at orienteering or another sport that I'm aware of. So I'm just going to split you into groups, and so give a bit of time on that, and then we'll come back and just have a discussion about the concern and talk through there. So let me split you up now. And I shall see you shortly. Right, I think you're still here, but they're open now. There we go. Just took a second to assign. Oops. Need to assign you 2 seconds. If you just give me a moment, I will just need to assign you to rooms. There we go. It's swirling around at the moment, telling me it's assigning. There's just 2 seconds. Right, Richard, I've just got you left to sign. All right, here we go. Apologies for the delay. It should be going. Ali, I should. He's not popped up in my rooms yet, so I should be able to assign you in a moment. I don't know why it's not popping up, Ali. Let me just.
Right.
Ali, have you had the option to select a room?
Oh, I've got room 2.
Yes.
Do I need to press go?
Yes. If you press that,
right.
No problem. Oh, Ian, I'll just assign you into a room. Just pop in up.
Thanks.
There we go. Ah, was you in room 4 before? Oh,
Yeah, I couldn't see anything,
all right. Well, let's.
and they couldn't hear me either, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have a taskbar to be able to change anything on, put anything on.
No problem. I'll assign you now. It should click up and let you back in.
That sounds really patronising, but you know what I mean. That befriending type of approach to parents who are struggling can actually elicit more information that
Yeah.
nobody ever talks to them.
Now I shut my back.
Right, I think it tells me all the rooms are slowly closing. I think is everybody about back? I think.
Peter, I've lost my picture and somebody else in the room had as well.
picture. So
Oh yeah,
No.
we couldn't. There was two of us. We couldn't see anybody once you signed us into the breakout rooms. I've got a black screen.
Yes, I had as well.
And it's got a little blue box that says rejoin. Should I click on that?
the rooms are closed now, but yeah. I'm not sure. We should give it a go next time. I'm not sure why. Was you able to hear people?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, yes, it should just work. Should just effortlessly work. But yeah, Ian's just mentioned he had a similar situation. So hopefully,
Should I click on the rejoin box then?
yes, yeah. But the mic should just drop off now. So
That's better. Let's come back now.
okay.
Thanks.
Right, so we've got a few minutes to have a look through this this example. If I go to start in a different order this time, yes, just see if I can. Yes, if people can mute if they're not talking at the moment. But if we go to group 4 and just hear what you said through there and put together. If somebody wants to stick their hand up from that one to have a chat through.
I'm not sure I know which is group 4 or which particular group I was
We
in.
didn't know what group we were in. No.
Did it not pop up? Well, we've got Amanda, Fiona, Ian, Anne, Peter and Judith are in room 4.
I can chip in for the bits I heard. There was certainly a sensible suggestion of recording what had happened and reporting it to the club welfare officer.
So, was there any talk about how people would react if it was obviously if it was a particular individual or somebody in the group had seen it? How was the thought process? What did you think in that sort of situation?
I think there was a sort of discussion about how to sort of gather that information, because sometimes with these sorts of situations there's a lot of hearsay around, and you can't really base anything substantial on the fact that you've heard somebody else say something. You need to get some sort of statement from people who've actually witnessed something occurring, and then in that case, how keen would the witnesses be to stand up and to stand up and be counted? And there was a suggestion that somebody could have a friendly word if they saw it happening, saying is everything all right? Anything we can help with? So something that might get a slightly more positive response than a direct challenge. Yes,
certainly. Group 3, which was Wendy, Jane, Liz, Caroline, Julie, and Anne. Did anything sort of different from there, or from the club point of view as well? What the club potentially could be putting in place?
Yeah, we were sort of along the same lines, really. And then obviously reporting it to the club welfare officer, a couple of us said, well, we are the club welfare officers. So, from our perspective, where would we go? Is it something that we would record? Like you say, there would be an element of gathering any information. But at what point do you then take those notes and actually take it any further, i.e. contact you, Peter? So I think there was sort of a little bit of lack of real understanding of what to do next.
Yeah.
I think we did think also we could put in our knowledge of the child. So, was there any other evidence of emotional abuse, say? were
Yeah.
they generally a happy child? But yeah, gather information on the reporting form.
Absolutely.
Because it's just a dad shouting at the child because they're dithering and it's a one-off. Then it wouldn't be a safeguarding, would it? But we didn't know what the nature of the shouting was.
Yes, yes, that's the case. You can watch somebody shout at a child. I think everybody's shouted at a child in some respect, whether it's outside in front of other people or in at home. But yes, it's to the extent, and then in this situation where others have seen it and had a concern, so that the shouting has got to a point that you've got multiple people seeing multiple examples of this and working through. I'm just going to go on to the next slide with a few different notes as well, because it ties into what I was going to sort of response there to Wendy. And then what we'll do is we'll go into the next group. We'll start having a look at group 1 and 2, can start to feedback through there. But just some general rule of thumbs before I come back to the specific point about where do club welfare officers sit. Should never wait before taking actions, but you can always sort of log information, and certainly if something happens within a club, if it's reported as a one-off, as a shouting incident, it's asking the right sort of questions. So the questions here, aggressive, is there sort of physical violence? Goes on to what you just said there, Anne, about the knowledge of the child as well. Is this something that, if you were a club welfare officer and you happened to go to speak to the coach to see, well, I've noted this, or it's been reported to me, what's your opinions about the child and how the child is coping? Is it obvious that there might be something else going on? It's speaking to the people that work with them individuals more, or within the club. So it might not necessarily be a coach, but it might be somebody that is supporting them through their journey. And with club welfare officers, yes, the answer is, I say, to come to myself, but also to speak to. You can also speak to other trusted people within the club. There are other people that will have a wealth of background, and we see the extent of people with different coaches within safeguarding as well. So it's speaking to the right type of people through there. So, and ensuring this is what. So I think you mentioned, Ian, was about separating the fact and opinion as well. So it's what you've heard versus what other people are telling you as well, and knowing that line of how to separate it so they don't become merged. It's important that we've got a clear boundary there, because that could influence a direction, certainly of an initial inquiry if it came through to us. But early action can help protect people through. So nothing should be dismissed. But certainly from a club point of view, you might go and speak to other trusted people within there, but it's not a case of speaking to everybody within the club straight away. You've got to be careful with it, because obviously if one wrong word can spread about, and somebody that's certainly innocent of anything could face retribution, or let's say a damaging of their reputation that's unjust. From the club point of view, it's people that sit away from the club welfare officers, knowing what the processes are within clubs. And this is certainly a profile thing that we're having a look at, and how we can support clubs this year. So do members within the club, do the coaches know the steps that they should be taking within a club? So if they observe something, or somebody comes to them, how does that get passed through to the club welfare officer, and then ultimately to myself? So it's just making sure people have got that awareness of the different steps that they should be taking through there. So you do occasionally get hearsay, and it is trying to work through that hearsay. And we have had cases where people have heard something from somebody else, and that's what we will still have a look into that and make some inquiries and work through. So everything is important, but obviously it depends how urgent things are as well. I'm just going to move on to the next example, because otherwise I start doing a bit of a crossover as well. A little bit different this time, but this is more into the coach. So we have here, Andrew is a qualified coach and coaches at his local orienteering club. A 15-year-old girl who is also a club member has asked to arrange individual coaching sessions to improve their skills ahead of a big event. So this might be something that I say happens quite regular. But I'm going to put you back into the same groups. What I'd just like you to have a chat through this time are obviously what are the potential dangers and concerns here. What measures could be put in place to ensure that both people are protected. Obviously, it's important to look after the coach, especially if you've got a young individual that is trying to improve and looking at ways to improve. What can you do to make sure that both are protected and both feel comfortable in their environment? And what can the club do to support that area as well in this particular example? Again, I'll give you about sort of 8 minutes, I think, on this one, and then we'll have a feedback as well. I think there was a message that just popped up. So just about sharing calendar, the camera. Need to be able to allow the camera so that it can be seen. So hopefully that will. Once you go into groups, it should solve that. I'm not sure. I haven't operated through there and come through myself on this. Right, sorry, and there was another question in there, but it's not. I don't need to mention it. So I will just put you into rooms now. And if you've got any questions, do give me a shout. I am just assigning you across. I think it's whirling in my corner.
Oh, come on. Okay.
Right. That answers my question, I'm afraid, Douglas. It says, I'm just going into here, it says that there's the device that you're using will not allow me to transfer you into a separate room, I'm afraid. So just need you to, so if you just hang on for a little bit, I'm afraid, and we'll be back shortly. Everyone should be slowly coming back in. I should have muted everybody as well, just as they're coming through there. So let's leave that. So I think everyone should be back now. Okay, so one-to-one working. Let's go straight. Let's go to room number 1. Richard, Kim, Carolyn, Tony, Jean, Craig. Who was able to feedback on what you found and discussed? Or rushing to come forward, or still on mute. We'll use the still on mute option.
Well, I think we basically said that we ought to have quite clear club policies that meant that one-on-one working was never going to be acceptable, because it was potentially dangerous to both parties. And so having a policy like that would be very clear to people, so it didn't end up being confusing for anyone. We would worry about false allegations. We'd also worry about potential abuse. And we also felt that in that circumstances, perhaps the club could organise group activities for young people rather than just the one-on-one. And alternatively, if there was one smaller clubs that didn't have enough young people, they would have to have 2 adults.
Yeah, no, certainly. Sorry, just excuse my little cough there. Yeah.
But we were a bit concerned about perhaps the coach. It wasn't clear from this as to whether the coach himself thought this was a good idea or not. But if he did think it was a good idea, we maybe felt that he had a training need.
Yeah, no, very good point. Yeah, how's the coach approach that? Let's see. There's lots of different scenarios, and it's like, actually, how do you read it? How does it come across? No, it's no, very good point. Certainly, we'll go to room 2 just next. It's Jacqueline, Jane, Selwyn, Claire, Ali, and Lindsay. Anything different in particular to add that you discussed in your group?
I'm happy to speak if nobody else is.
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty fair summary of what we thought, that it can't happen basically, and you need the procedures in place to make sure that it doesn't. Yeah, I just thought of something else that could be put in place. If you've got one young person in a club and not enough to fill a group, then you could always invite a parent along, or Andrew could have invited a parent along to that session. Yeah, that may not be what a 15-year-old really wants, but that would get round the problem.
Yeah, certainly. Anything? I'll bring the other slide up in a moment, unless there's anybody else wants to jump in with anything from any of the groups.
We did talk about working in the terrain, that there was a danger in no, she got lost. No, that's danger in itself rather than any other safeguarding concerns. But
yes,
physical safety was the problem.
It's the type of sport, isn't it, that in different environments, if you were in a sports hall, for example, you could potentially have the one-to-one training because the parent could be sat in a viewing gallery and watching over, and there's other people in that same area. But when you have terrain as such, it's a lot harder to do that. Jacqueline, yes, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say the parental presence is fine until you are out in the wild. If you've got a non-orienteering parent, then you might need another orienteer around. So there are so many reasons why this situation should generally be avoided.
Yeah,
but it's not impossible that it could happen as long as everyone on all sides knows what's going on. And yeah. I think the one thing that we came up with in our group is that if someone's wants to do this and doesn't tell anybody, we can't stop it. We wouldn't know about it, but that's just something you can't do anything about. That's why you have to have good procedures that are shared and understood.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think you can stop it, and I think Andrew's licensing and insurance would prevent it anyway. So
no. That's not what I'm saying, Selwyn. I'm saying no. You can stop it, but if both parties were intent on making it happen, they wouldn't tell anyone, and it would happen. That's all. That's the point I was saying.
But it's got to happen out with the ambit of the orienteering club, and if everybody knows that that's how it's happening, then it's not our responsibility, I'm afraid.
No.
Yes,
still wouldn't look good.
No, it's
I do think though I think as a club we do have a responsibility that people in positions of power in the club shouldn't misuse it. If club members became aware that a coach had stepped over the mark, then that should be challenged, whether it's happening outside of official coaching or not. After all, this child is 15.
Yeah. And the coach does get, certainly within the Orienteering, they're obviously a licensed coach as well. There's codes of conduct that they need to complete. So they shouldn't be going against recommendations through there. And if the club certainly becomes aware of it, it's something that the club would need to sit down with the coach and say that this is against our best practice and our policies. These are the reasons we don't want to go ahead with this, and this is the decision we've made. And then if the coach, they may have been innocent and just not realised, but then if they do wish to carry on after they've had that discussion with the club, then it could escalate, because it could be seen as potential obviously abuse and things that could be happening when it's been explicitly said to them that this is not something that we wish to happen. Lots of different situations. I'll just put up some the next slide as well. So potentially, I say it could happen, but it could happen in the right environment, in that you've got small groups. So there are some basics that need to be done as well, such as coaches having the DBS, PVG access, an eye in place. Coaches should have taken the different safeguarding and protection courses as well, and then they'd be able to, because it might be an innocent ignorance. I think sometimes it could be described, that if they weren't realising what they were doing. But any type of sort of small group coaching as well. I mean, there's been a lot of online coaching as well that's going on, and different procedures there. So it's, when we talk about choosing a suitable venue, there was this the point made there earlier about how clubs, it's the training in the different terrain. But if you're doing an online session, it's important that they're in an open area, such as a living room, or not hidden away in some child's bedroom. But it's just little safeguards through that the coach would need on both sides as well, because again, just to safeguard both parties there. And if you are having small groups, or there has been an exception, or you've talked with the club and agreed that a one-to-one training session could take place, again, you wouldn't want to rule everything out. It might not be best practice, but there might be ways that safeguards could be put in place. And any type of training in small groups and such like that, it's knowing the date, the time, the place of coaching, and where things are taking place. Talking about club policies and procedures, they were brought up. And the one-to-one coaching might happen, but you might have a parent that's going to follow around and observe as well, and take a back seat. But you've got also, which was highlighted, the parent understanding how orienteering works. So if they're a non-orienteer, do they understand what the practices will be taking place? So one of the policies and procedures there could be actually before any coaching, to provide the parent with that guidance as well, so they are aware of what will be happening. And just talking about if they're looking for, people are looking for more individual sessions, could that run as smaller group sessions as an alternative to try and move away from one-to-ones, engage more people. Again, you appreciate that some clubs have obviously a great big junior setup, and some have only a couple of juniors. So it's working, being aware of that. You might put a coaching session on and have 2 juniors and the rest are seniors. So it's just making sure that the juniors, especially as well, feel comfortable in that environment. Did anybody else have any questions, or not any question necessarily, but any further points of discussion from that? It sounds like there's been some really good feedback through there. Ian, hand up first, I think.
One point that was raised in our group was what about shadowing? Because you could organise, a group training session, but sometimes within that training session, potentially you do have short periods of time when a coach might be following somebody doing a particular leg or something, and the difficulties with that, and whether or not that's acceptable or not.
Has anybody? This question has come up a few times. It has come up, and so it's a very good example when you talk about the one-to-one. Has any clubs had this before and talked about how they would approach it? I'll do. Yeah, sorry, someone's there.
Sorry.
So is that Judith? Is it yourself?
Yeah, it was. Sorry. In fact, I didn't mention it when we were in the group, but one of my colleagues in the group said about older juniors shadowing younger juniors, and that's something that we do in our club, because my daughter actually is 15 now, but as a sort of 13-year-old, she had shadowed younger children when they didn't necessarily want mum or dad shadowing them, so she might shadow round a yellow course or a white course. But again, that's something that we've done a little bit of in our club. But I think certainly I have known shadowing happen when the juniors move up a level and they're in a squad.
Yeah.
They do some shadowing activities, but as part of a bigger group, which I think is different to what sounds like is being requested by the young person in this scenario. But
yeah, it's different. I think the scenario I think that you talked about here, Ian, was with regard to sort of more an adult supervising or shadowing a junior as you're going round again. It is looking at courses, so it's always make people uncomfortable if it's a one-to-one, potentially what could happen. So you might have more than one person going around with the shadow, but if you are going around there, you're doing a relatively shorter course. It's knowing who's going out with who, at what time they were going out, what time they should be expected back. So if they're being shadowed, they certainly shouldn't be making any major navigational errors. And it's understanding that the route that they'll be taking and making sure that they are that there is that time frame of getting around the course and when they'll be expected back, and also making sure that on both parties again, and the junior going around knows exactly what the shadow person will be coming in, and they'll be stepping in on certain scenarios and situations, and that'll be the only time that they'll be due to be giving any sort of advice. Anything further beyond that would not be appropriate. And it's being clear for the person that's being shadowed what to expect in that situation. But it's always safer if you have small groups, but that's it. The nature of the sport as well, when you're going around, you're trying to improve yourself individually. But it might be something where if you've got a couple of people that are going around, you could have a couple of juniors going around together, and with an adult shadow in that situation, observing them together. So at least you've then got a 3-person unit. Okay. Are there any further questions on this one, or any further comments? Just realised obviously the time's 8:30, but when some of the conversations going there, I say really valuable.
In that session you're just talking about,
yes,
I think it depends on the circumstance, but it's quite a good idea to give participants a space or a way of giving feedback. Tell me, I don't quite, there'd be different ways of doing it, but if someone was uncomfortable with someone shadowing them, or they just need a way of being able to report it as well, rather than just, they've come back out the forest, it's absolutely fine. You don't know. You just hope it's all fine. Yes,
and this something which we're working with clubs to start to raise the awareness this year. The next bit that was going to, I'll keep a quick overview because I'm not going to do any more sort of groups tonight, conscious of where we are with the time. but it is, yeah, it's making sure that everybody in the club, regardless of age, I know we focus, safeguarding does focus a lot on juniors, but it could be adults as well. It is making sure that they are aware of, if someone does make them feel uncomfortable, if something is happening outside, what are the channels that they go through, and who can they report things to in confidence. They may come out the terrain, they may come out the forest, and actually something has happened, God forbid. But they might not want to go straight away and go and speak to the person that's at the download tent, because they know that the coach is really friendly with them. So it's just, what avenues can they go in confidence? What are the steps? And it's this awareness that we're working with to try and help. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but it's just, what can we do as a governing body and working with clubs to be able to help everybody get that message across, to feel more confident, should they wish to report anything in particular. So Wendy, I know you put your hand up a bit ago. Apologies for waiting.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, if you've only got one adult, what would be, in terms of safety? You've said there that the club could run smaller grouping sessions. I mean, if you had sort of 3 or 4 juniors, I mean, is it safe for one adult to run that session? Where do you draw the line on that?
I think you'd certainly have to have another adult from the club there present. Again, ideally with a safeguarding knowledge and a background. You wouldn't want it just to be that individual's best mate or friend to come along, and potential compromise there. But yeah, somebody else that would be able to observe it, even if they're just supporting. I'm sure there'll be something they'll be able to help with. But if it is going to be small-sided, there really should be more, like a minimum sort of a couple of adults there.
Thank you.
I think actually on that, from a non-safeguard, just from a general safety perspective, if you've got one adult and 4 children, you're out in the forest, the adults hurts themselves in some way, I think you need to have a second adult there in case of that sort of situation.
And that comes to the risk assessments that should be done, obviously within that as well, is what are the outcomes through there, and safeguarding is another element, but is not just the only element that I think you quite rightly highlight there. Okay, I'm not going to. I've just obviously moved on to the next slide here. We're not going to be doing a discussion on this because I'm just conscious that we are running over time. But it's something that I'll send out to clubs and such as well, and club welfare officers, to get some feedback from as well. As I say, we are trying to support and how we can implement best practice, particularly as a starting block would be the club's websites, and having a look through specifically the safeguarding sections as well, just to have a look at how they could be structured. Is there a template of best practice that I can put together? So that's what we're going to try and create over the next few months, to have something which clubs can easily adapt and put onto their website. So we're not saying that every club has to go out and suddenly think of what they need to do to highlight safeguarding on their website. We actually want to put that together and then give you the template, which you can then obviously adapt and tailor within yourselves. And for there, so questions which I'll be asking through, because again, we want it to be based on obviously what are the needs that you can identify as well. So what would you expect to see there? Specific external websites that might be useful. If you look on our website, we do link into CPSU, the Ancraft Trust, which for those that are not familiar, the Ancraft Trust is safeguarding within the adult environment. Additionally, sort of what resources and templates on there. So we want to, not only are we going to try and build further and recognise the need to evolve our governing body website, but how can we support clubs to evolve your website? So you've got documents on there that are to hand. So if somebody does want to report something, They don't have to go through several different links to find a particular document if they want that document. Let's say reporting a concern, and there are, or an incident, there are set forms to use. However, it's important to note you don't have to fill in a form to report a concern. It can just be on an email, as simple as on an email, on a bit of paper that's written down, signed and dated as a minimum. But if somebody wishes to go through the forms, they're easy accessible. And what can we do? So it's talk about sort of where club policies are and club advice. So we're going to be building that template over the next few months, and looking to obviously work with clubs to make sure it's appropriate, and working through there. Yes, sorry, just put your hand up. Yeah.
Most people call me Adrian, not Jacqueline, but I don't mind.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
it's quite all right. It's just my wife's login, but it's absolutely fine.
So I just popped up my screen across there. So when you said that, apologies.
One of the, I think the highest risk in terms of coaching and juniors is not actually within clubs. Well, because not many clubs have enough coaching activity for all their juniors, but junior squads, it's a different matter. Yeah, you've got groups of teenagers going away together at weekends. It's a potentially quite a high risk environment if there's someone who wants to do the wrong thing, and so if we have a club website based approach, it needs to we also need to recognize that everyone involved needs to know what to do when it happens anywhere, not just within their own club.
Yes, certainly, and within them sort of environments as well, you've got a lot of the focus on some of the trips and the squads that might be away is about the adults with the children, but you could have children within children there. There is that aspect of things as well. So yeah, it's certainly making sure that people are all aware, and there's policies and procedures in place. And it's that awareness of what people need to do through there. Okay, so I will follow that. Sorry, Ian, yeah. Sorry, still on, just on mute.
I was just going to chip in there that a lot of the junior squads have their own websites, and I guess the same applies as to the club websites.
Yes, indeed. It will be just as important that they work through as well. But yeah, we'll be putting them together. And likewise, if there's anything particular that people want included in there, we're going to try and we'll pull the stuff together, so with everybody that's advised. Obviously, and send it out to be able to utilize through there. So I know I've had a couple of questions asking about how they could build specific web pages, and what content should be included in that. So that's what we want to set out and help you with this year. Okay. I just want to obviously thanks everyone for attending tonight. I think that's so the hour or so tonight is just certainly for myself has flown by, and really appreciate the input and everybody's put into the sessions and the feedback. I think it's certainly been really useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. And, so something slightly different on the safeguarding aspects, but really crucial within sport, and we'll be building to drive this area forward as well throughout this year. So appreciate all the help that we get from clubs, and certainly credit mentioned at the beginning about how the coaching license adaptation came in with the safeguarding aspect in June. We had a review with the CPSU in December. No, it wasn't. It was October. Sorry. We have our annual review, and that was something that they'd highlighted previously, and they really wanted to acknowledge how well the coaches had done. The volume of coaches that actually undertook the safeguarding training between January and the date in June was fantastic. There was not far off 300 coaches in that period of time took a safeguarding course, and they wanted to recognise the effort that everybody went to undertake that, and it was a real big tick for orienteers across the country. So so if you were involved on that, the courses themselves, and thank you, but obviously thanks for passing that message along and everybody getting involved. So but I will leave it there this evening. Thank you all for attending, and any questions, just get in touch with myself, and we'll see what we can see and help support you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.